Do you know anyone who gets the disability tax credit? If so, that person should almost certainly set up an RDSP. That's a registered disability savings plan. We're going to talk about that this week, and we're going to see if we can explode some myths about the great benefits of having a registered disability savings plan in place. All you need is to qualify for the disability tax credit. This is Make Better Wealth Decisions, a podcast about financial blind spots, decision-making, and how the reality of higher rates, global tensions, and tariff instability impact your investments. I'm your host, John DeGuy, a portfolio manager with Design Securities in Toronto. We're speaking with Eldon Dunseith. He is an investment advisor and insurance advisor who works closely with families and people with disabilities. He believes everyone deserves clear, honest advice, and especially that's true when life gets complicated. He was born without most of his left arm and has spent his life proving that his ability to live like everyone else is something that we should all strive for. After hearing no from his doctor regarding the disability tax credit years ago, Eldon found a doctor who understood the limitations of what he was having to deal with and what he had to overcome. And it led to his being able to get access to the disability tax credit. That experience shaped his mission. And today he helps people with disabilities avoid the same barriers, the same misunderstandings, and the opportunities that he missed out on. Eldon, how are you today?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Also well. I rarely have other financial advisors on my podcast, but you're an exception because you've got a great story to tell and you've got a great perspective that will help people make better wealth decisions if they know anyone who is eligible for or already receiving the disability tax credit.
Well, first off, I'll say thank you. I guess if you're not used to having other advisors on here, if I'm the exception, not the rule, I'm touched. But no, I appreciate being on here with you today. And
let's begin with the most obvious question, where we wanted to talk about registered disability savings plans, RDSPs. So in a nutshell, what is an RDSP?
Well, an RDSP, acronym for Registered Disability Savings Plan, is an investment tool that is used by qualifiers for the disability tax credit. And that can do much more for you than just that. But in order to qualify for that, you have to be a qualifier for the DTC.
Okay. And so it was brought in by Jim Flaherty when he was Minister of Finance, maybe, 14, 15 years ago. I know that Minister Flaherty had people in his own family that had disabilities, and he was frustrated because we have things like RDSPs that have been around for 40 or 50 years and TFSAs that have been around for maybe 20 years. But the RDSP is something that was brought. There was a specific need to be filled, and we needed a government program to do it because otherwise people wouldn't do it. So let's talk about who's eligible to get the RDSP. You mentioned the dividend tax credit. So what is that? How do you apply? How do you get it? Walk us through that.
Yeah, well, as I said, you have to qualify for the disability tax credit. You have to be a Canadian resident with a valid social insurance number and under the age of 60 when opening the plan. When you ask what was the RDSP, I often say to people it's like an RRSP, but for people who qualify for the disability tax credit. And also the grants and bonds that are available are the biggest in our industry. It is a great tool that they opened up in 2008. And the sad part is not enough people are using it.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know what the statistics are. I recall that when the RDSP was first introduced, for many, many years, virtually no firm had the infrastructure set up to even open them. There were only 2 or 3 firms in Canada for the first 3 or 4 years where you could even open an application to set up an RDSP. So the industry was slow in adopting the infrastructure to take advantage of changes to the tax code. And I wonder if that's still something that you see today. What's your sense? I don't know if you know what the numbers are. What percentage of people who get the disability tax credit actually set up RDSPs? Do you have any idea of what the numbers are?
It's a ballpark number, but yes. So out of all the people in Canada who qualify for the disability tax credit, upwards of 70% do not have an RDSP.
Wow. And you're just leaving money on the table because it's such a great thing. As you say, there are a lot of grants and things that you can be getting from the government just for setting it up, and even more when you contribute to it. So let's have you walk us through, how does one qualify for, and apply for, if you qualify, the disability tax credit?
So there is a government form. It's a T2201, the disability tax credit application. In order to qualify, you have to have some sort of, whether it's illness or physical developmental issue that impacts your day and makes you what I will call, I think they use the phrase, markedly restricted to be able to do things. So categories like walking, mental functions, dressing, feeding, hearing, speaking, vision, the 6 activities of daily living, and a couple others. And if you get certified, actually, let me go back a second. If you have this, it's not just, I qualify because I have an issue. It's how does that issue impact your day? And if it really slows you down, or as I said, markedly restricted in doing certain things, then you will qualify. And having that disability tax credit opens you up to, as you said, the grants. When you're putting money in, there's a lifetime limit of $200,000 that you can put into this thing. And even if you don't put any money in, if your income is under $37,000, you can get $1,000 a year for the Canadian Disability Savings Bond, up to $20,000 lifetime maximum put into the account.
Wow. So it's very generous. And one thing that you did not mention that I should tell you that I know about personally, because I have a niece who is autistic. And so we set up an RDSP for her. So a lot of people, when they think of disabilities, they'll think of it the way you're disabled in terms of having a physical disability. But there are also people who have mental disabilities that are perhaps not even obvious, not even intuitive, but they're very real. And you get the disability tax credit for that too. A lot of people listening will be parents or grandparents who will have family members who, if they're doing their taxes, will know that, oh, I know so-and-so, they get the disability tax credit. Almost everyone knows someone somewhere who is eligible for and receiving the disability tax credit. So then the question is, do all those people have RDSP set up? Because they, almost without exception, ought to. And it's remarkable. So let's talk about opening an RDSP. If you wanted to open an RDSP, how would you go about doing it? Where can you do it? What does it take? What's the paperwork involved?
So you can do it in any one of the major banks. They can open up a registered disability savings plan for you. There are advisors like myself out there who can also open them through companies like Mackenzie. We have access to BMO as well. So again, one of the major banks. Empire Life recently opened an RDSP, put one out. And I think, there will probably be more mutual fund companies that do it. I just think the opportunity is completely missed by our industry to support people who qualify and to make them aware of this great tool that's available for them.
Okay, so how much money can you contribute on an annual basis and on a lifetime basis?
Well, there's no annual limit, but the lifetime limit is $200,000. So whether you were to, if you had the means to put it all in day one, you could. You can do that over time, and it's a lifetime limit only, no annual limit. You can set up a pack, so monthly, biweekly, funds going into the account, many different ways to do that. And family and friends can contribute as well with authorization of the policyholder.
Okay. And then what kind of matching money do you get from the government as a result of making a contribution to an RDSP?
It's based on family net income. So the family net income now, I think, is around $114,000. So for example, if it's a child, it would be that number that is used. And if it's less than that, it's 300% of the first $500 of contributions, so up to $1,500 a year. And then another 200% on the next 1,000, up to $2,000 a year. So if it's more, you get a little less on the grant side. It's 100% of the first 1,000. So you get up to $1,000. By no means insignificant money. The lifetime maximum on the disability savings grants is 70,000, and on the disability savings bonds, it's a lifetime max of 20,000. So potentially up to $90,000 in government funds that can be put into this account for the beneficiary to use in the future. As I said, it's basically an RRSP. It's a long-term investment tool and lots of room for growth.
So let's talk about how you go about putting the money in with an RRSP or a TFSA. If you don't make the contribution this year, the contribution room carries forward and you can put the contribution in a future year. With an RDSP, you can put the money in this year, and if you miss a year, you can go back only 1 year and you can catch up over multiple years. But if you're 7 years behind, it'll take you the next 7 years to catch up if you put in for that year, the year before, and so forth until you keep on going back. How does that work with an RDSP?
So for the RDSP, because there's no, as I said, it's an annual limit you can put in, you could put yourself in a spot where you only got 1 year worth of bonds. Right. If you were, say, to put the whole thing in up front. But the bonds are available to you on a go-forward basis. When you first open it, the disability tax credit will go back and reassess your tax returns up to 10 years, or how far back you had the disability, whichever is shorter, and put that on there. And the grants and bonds would be available to you. For example, I did open one up earlier this year for a young man who is of legal age and has his own account. The disability went back 4 years. So he got the bonds, 4,000 plus 1,000 for this year. So $5,000 went in for him.
Yeah. Wonderful. So it's a great way. So you can basically catch up even if you haven't claimed every year, depending on when you were diagnosed. And if you were diagnosed with a disability at, say, age 10, and you're now 18, then you can actually, you or the people who contribute on your behalf can catch up to 8 years worth of grant money as a result of opening the account and making the necessary contribution.
Yeah. And as you said, for age 10, the grants would be based on the family income, which, as I said, I believe is around 114,000 right now. But when the beneficiary, so in that case, that 10-year-old becomes 19, it's their income that becomes the marker for that. So if they're making below the 37,000 and change, they can get the bonds. Any money that goes in gets the better percentages of grant on top of the money that's deposited.
Okay, so are there things that you can explain with regard to the disability grants and the bonds, how they work? Are there nuances? Are there things that you should know that are perhaps a little less than obvious, not as intuitive?
No, I wouldn't say so. I know that I always set the expectation for the subscribers that when you deposit the money, generally 4 weeks or so, you'll see that grant money follow. And if you're running a pack, it'll very much seem like when your monthly pack runs in, there's going to be grants. Last month's grants will be coming in right around the same time you're doing your new deposit for this month. So it really
just to make sure people understand. Yeah, a PAC is a pre-authorized checking monthly contribution plan.
Yes.
Just to make sure people listening understand what PAC is. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's good. You know, you can slowly, basically the grant money comes in maybe about a month or so after you put the money in. But if you're putting in, pick a number, $300 a month, then the grant money will come in typically about a month behind, but it's matching the contribution from a month before. But it's, as long as you're putting money in, the grant money is going to keep on going in. And that's great. So what about withdrawing? So now you've been putting the money in all this time, and hopefully it's been growing, and whatever you invest in hopefully appreciates over time. And now you've decided that you want to take some money out. What are the markers? What do you have to do? Can you put money in and take money out the way you can for an RSP? Or is it, you're right, you can't suck and blow at the same time? You're either putting money in or you're taking money out. What's it going to be?
Technically, yes. You can be taking money out at any time. It is designed, as I said, as a long-term savings vehicle. So when you think of an RRSP, when we get to age 71, they make us turn that into a RIF, registered income fund, for us to start pulling money out as income, which would be taxable because the government wants that at a certain point. But in an RSP, you can also pull money out anytime you like, really, and take it. And again, it's marked as income for you in the year you withdraw that. When it comes to an RDSP, the contributions you put in are tax-free when withdrawn. It's basically just a return of capital. Grants, bonds, and gross are taxable to the beneficiary. And the beneficiary in this case would be the disabled person. Oftentimes, the disabled person is also the subscriber, the policy owner, the account holder, but oftentimes, parents or other family members might also be. The one thing and it's a big one, when you're going to pull money out early, is that the grants and bonds have to stay in the plan for 10 years before withdrawal. In what I will call an expected case where we're going to hold this thing till age 60 when it has to turn into a payment vehicle for us, grants and bonds are last able to be put in the year the beneficiary turns 49. And then from age 60, any grants and bonds have been there at least 10 years. So if grants and bonds have gone in and you go to pull money out less than 10 years out, it would be $3 for every dollar would go back to the government.
Great. So it's one of those things where you don't have to work at it immediately, but the sooner the better, because time will creep up fairly quickly. And unlike an RRSP where you can make contributions until you're 71, with an RDSP, you're really only making contributions until age 49 at the latest, depending on your age and your life expectancy and your other means of income. So it does rather accelerate the urgency in getting the money in sooner rather than later. Wondering if you can maybe tell us a story, a case study. Maybe can you maybe walk me through even just one example of someone who has set up an RDSP, contributed to it because it's relatively new. It's be too early to start talking about people who have started to take money out. But what's the experience been like putting money in? You put it into a series of a basket of different investments, diversified portfolio, long-term time horizon. Walk us through what that might look like for a typical family.
I would say that probably more than half of the RDSPs that I have with clients are for minors, the beneficiary, or at least started that way. At least a couple of them have aged up in my time. But parents, as I said, the numbers, like probably 70% easily for people who qualify for it or have children who qualify for the disability tax credit that don't have one of these. And actually the experience, I'll say one of the more educational moments that I've had with a client was I took on a family as the husband and wife as clients, and they already had an RDSP for one of their children. And 1.2 is you can only have one for one person. Our ESPs, our RSPs, we see people have them in multiple, different investment houses or banks. With an RDSP, you can only have one. They have one for one of their children, and it was a great move. The child qualifies for the tax credit. And during the conversation, I caught that one of the parents actually has the disability tax credit. And I thought, okay, I must be missing something. And I asked them, did I just catch that you also qualify for the tax credit? And they said, yeah, I have this issue and I qualify. And I said, that's great. I wonder, do you have one of these accounts?
It's not great that you have a disability, but it's great that you qualify.
But great that you got the qualifying, but I thought, do you have one of these accounts somewhere? And the look I got in return was just disbelief when they told me, I thought it was only for children.
Yeah.
So they knew enough that the RDSP was a great tool available to you if you qualify, but one of the parents qualified and didn't have one for themselves. We've rectified that. But yeah, so just these people knew enough about it and still didn't take advantage of it because they had a misunderstanding, a misconception of it being just for children. I mean, there's people out there who don't know about it maybe at all. And somebody who did know about it even didn't know that they could have one.
So really the message is if you or someone qualifies for the disability tax credit, you should run, not walk, to set up an RDSP, because it's pretty much always going to be in your to your benefit to have one set up. And that doesn't even matter how old you are, unless of course you're more than 49 years old, in which case that ship is sort of kind of sailed. But otherwise, you should be doing this.
Yes. I mean, the disability tax credit now also avails the Canada Disability Benefit to you, which is new in 2025, the $200 a month that the federal government will send you just because you qualify. So there are reasons. I mean, the credit itself is a non-refundable tax credit. So it's going to help you reduce your tax burden even if you don't have an RDSP, it's a helpful tool. But there's so much more available by qualifying.
Wonderful. Okay, let's wrap this up. Eldon, I always like to finish my podcast with a question. So the podcast is called Make Better Wealth Decisions. And I want to ask you, if you could give any advice to the listeners today to help them make better wealth decisions, what would that be?
Talk to an advisor. Talk to your friends. Who do they work with? But talk to somebody and get advice. That would be my advice to people.
Perfect. Okay.
Don't wait.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, John. Pleasure to be here today.
This podcast is not to be construed as offering specific investment advice. Please consult a qualified advisor before acting. My books, Stand Up to the Financial Services Industry and Bullshift, are available online. If you'd like to meet to discuss how the topics in this podcast affect you directly, please visit my website.